What's up everyone, Joe Gray here today to talk about the best cable attachments to train your chest and shoulders. This is part of a video series where I started off with the 5 cable attachments I believe you should start with, and now we are digging deep into each of the muscle groups to talk about the best of the best cable attachments available. If that is something that jives with you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of the videos. We're going to dig into a little bit of anatomy as we discuss this. I'm going to cover the cable attachments themselves and even give you some tips and tricks on how to perform these exercises just a little bit better so you can get the most out of everything you do with these cable attachments. Housekeeping items for you. Some of these I paid for myself. Some of them I was sent for free. Some I have an affiliate link or discount code, and others I have none of the above. Let's just keep it simple and say that at the end of this video, if you decide that you want to pick up anything that I mention in this video, there will be links in the description for you to do so. Using those links, codes, etc. might give me a kickback and support the channel at no additional cost to yourself. So I appreciate you using them. All right, let's dig into some cable attachments. All right, so chest, otherwise known as the pecs or pectoralis muscle, is broken down into a few different pieces. The good news is that chest is typically not going to be trained differently based off of a cable attachment, but instead by the angles that you set up for yourself, either by adjusting the cable column, your bench, the way you're standing, your arm path, those kinds of things. For shoulders, we're going to look at the front or the anterior delt, the side or the lateral delt, and the rear or the anterior delt. Now you also have a little bit of shoulder work when we're talking about an overhead press, which we'll get into as well. And there are a lot of muscles in the rotator cuff and surrounding area. We're primarily going to talk about how to develop that kind of three-dimensional look in your shoulder, which typically comes from various raises. I mentioned this cable attachment during the first 5 video, and I'm gonna say again, the absolute best cable attachment for pressing variations is the Trak handle sport. This is a D handle that has been improved in basically every way possible. It has a very free motion in a number of planes and axes. Here's a quick demo, maybe not super quick for you, of how well this thing spins. These come from a very small manufacturer. They, from what I can tell, only make 2 cable attachments, the Trak Handle Sports and their Pro version. I have been asked before, which one should I choose? The Sports are the more highly recommended version that I see from basically anyone out there. They are a little bit cheaper, which is good because they are already fairly expensive. The Pros open the door for a few more movements for biceps and a few different things, but I would actually choose a different cable attachment for those movements than the Pros. So I'm going to recommend that if you're looking at this, you go with the Trak Handle Sports. The overall design of these is fantastic. They move very cleanly. It creates a very natural feeling and presses. The design is slim, so you're not running into the cable attachment itself. You have no restriction in movement by anything creating friction off of itself. This is just a very well thought out and exceptionally well done piece. Now, you can use a basic D handle. Bodybuilders for years have done so, so I'm not going to hold it against you if you decide to go with a more budget route, as these are going to be 2, 3, maybe even more times more expensive than a basic D handle, clocking in at over $100 for a pair. Factor in shipping and tax and all kinds of good stuff, and this is a pretty expensive piece compared to the more budget option. My opinion is that it is worth it, and everyone I have talked to that has owned a pair agrees, but your savings account is not mine, so I understand choosing otherwise. Now, to take your pressing up a notch, I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks. So one is first to take a seat. So by sitting down on a bench as opposed to standing like you see in a lot of cable fly type movements, you have more stability. You're able to firmly plant your feet and allow the bench to help you rotate your arms back around and get a good stretch. You increase your stability and strength potential as well, and there's all kinds of good stuff going on there. By using a bench, you also have the ability to adjust the angles, so if you want to attack the upper pecs versus the lower pecs, you can do so by simply adjusting the bench and the starting position of the cables as well. Two is I'm going to recommend that you bring that bench out forward. That allows us to get, again, a better stretch in the chest by allowing the cable to travel back closer to your body. A lot of people perform these as a fly type movement, which can work, but in my experience, we want more tension on the chest, not for it to deviate into the shoulder or the bicep. So a closer arm path to the body, wrapping around and back and using that bench as support by pulling straight back, loads up the pecs and nothing else. You are stronger, you can handle more weight for more reps, which is all going to equate to better gains. If you are someone like myself with bigger hands, you might also benefit from adding a grip to these. Something like a cone grip or a fat grip feels very natural. I find that this is better for my hands because it disperses the weight more evenly. I get a little bit more tension in the hand by being able to squeeze it harder, which then of course means more strength as we go. So there's a couple of tips for you to level up your chest presses, whether you use a regular D handle or you grab the Trak handle sports. All right, so for shoulders, we can use the Trak handle sports for overhead pressing variations, which is an absolutely fantastic version there. But we're gonna focus mostly on the raises that I talked about before. So lateral raises, front raises, rear delt raises. You again, can use the Trak handle sports if you choose to. That is actually my wife's preferred cable attachment for those movements. I prefer myself, and many others do as well, a cuff of some kind. In the first 5 video, I showed you that you can use a basic ankle cuff to do these. That is the kind of standard basic option. If you want to go a little more bougie, you can grab a cuff from 1MR. The 1MR adjustable rope cuffs give us a few extra bonus points compared to a basic ankle cuff. One is that they are much easier to get on and off. So if you are doing supersets of any kind, you can strap in, do your work, get them off much quicker and move on to your next exercise without having to undo Velcro on and off over and over and over again. The larger cuff itself gives a little bit more padding, security, stability in that arm as well. And the extra cloth material on that leader piece gives us a little bit more stretch in our movements. As we are finding out more and more, that stretch aspect, that loaded stretch, is a very important piece to the hypertrophy puzzle. So anytime we can get a little more in that space, that is a beneficial item for us. Now, again, regular ankle cuffs will get the job done and will open up opportunities for leg day as well as shoulder day. But once again, this is a slightly more bougie option that might give you a little bit more bang if you're looking to do so. Now, if you're trying to level up your shoulder work, once again, I'm going to recommend that you take a seat. If you can sit down on a bench, lay down on a bench, go prone on a bench, you might be able to get a little bit more out of this. Again, you have the stability of the bench to press into with your back, chest, whatever it might be. You have the ability to then focus purely on the shoulder movement instead of having to keep yourself stable. And you can get creative and sometimes even do these with both arms at the same time. If you want to get even more bougie, you can go with something like adding in a Voltra 1, so then that way you can match the strength curve of a raise, so then that way it is heavier in the stretch and lighter in the fully extended position. That way you can maximize the full range of motion and strength in your delts. When we use a cuff, the reason why we do so is we can take the wrist out of the equation. We want to take the wrist out because it is a very mobile joint. The more stable we can be, the stronger we can be, the more reps we can do, which should lead to more gains. The problem is that by taking the hand out of the equation entirely, you lose some of the benefit from what is called radiation. So by squeezing a handle, you lock that wrist and you get tension all the way down into the forearm, into the arm, and up into the shoulder. We can address this. So set up your cuff as normal and then simply put something that you can squeeze in your hands. It can be a small piece of pipe, it could be a fat grip or cone grip of some kind, or my typical preferred one at this point, because I'm a little much, is to grab a pair of Mutant Metals nubs. These are perfectly knurled, small, they fit in your hand and are completely unobtrusive to the movement that I'm trying to do. They allow me to squeeze and get that extra radiation up into my arm and shoulder while still leveraging the stability improvements from the cuffs, and I get a 1 + 1 = 3 situation, and I can bang out an extra rep or two. So that is the tips and tricks for you to get just a little bit more out of these movements for shoulders. And that is it today for chest and shoulders. Luckily, we don't need to get super creative. We just need a couple of items that are really well done that allow us to get the job done on some of these basic exercises just a little bit better. So what do you think? Are you gonna grab a couple of these cable attachments, or are you gonna stick with your tried and true favorite D handle? Are you gonna pick up some of the grips that I mentioned, or maybe try out one of the tips and tricks I shared in the exercises? Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you liked what you saw today, make sure you give me a thumbs up as well, so that way I know to keep it going. Again, you can grab some budget options of D handles and an ankle cuff, or even just stick with a D handle and perform all of the exercises I listed today. The ones that I recommend are ones that I have acquired over the years that I think do the job a little bit better and are worth the investment for me. Again, if you want to pick up anything I mentioned today, including the cable attachments as well as the cone grips and things like that, I've got links in the description for you. Depending on when you're watching this video, I may also have additional links to the other videos in this series, so make sure you check that out. If you want to make sure you don't miss anything I've got coming your way, articles, tips and tricks, garage gym competition updates, our home gym, AMAs, and all kinds of good stuff, consider signing up for my newsletter. I share behind the scenes details and all kinds of good stuff there first before anywhere else, and sometimes only there as well. And with that, I will be back with more home gym awesomeness for all of you very soon. Peace.